Welcome to the Pat White Show. Over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of hubbub, a lot of hoorah going on, having to do with the building of a brand new theater. And that's what I'm going to call it, a theater, a dining facility, a hall. How about a big giant dance hall, eating hall, call it whatever you want, at the White House, replacing a lot of the East Wing. Now, let me tell you about the East Wing. The East Wing was constructed back in, I think, around 1924. It was designed for the First Lady's office and the Welcome Center for the Visitor Center. Well, over the years, it's become very, very cramped, very unusable, and frankly, it's not serving any purpose anymore. Now, it's not the West Wing. This is the East Wing. Now, over the years, presidents from way back have altered the White House because they wanted to. You don't need to, as the president, to go to Congress, to the House, the Senate, or anybody else to say, here's what I want to do. Because over the years, presidents have done what they wanted to do. Let me give you probably one of the biggest ones of all. One of the biggest ones was when Truman was president. Now, this is after FDR died. FDR had a swimming pool built in the White House so he could do his swimming exercises. Ultimately, they took that out and put in the press room. Now, I would be willing to take out the press room and drown the entire press corps in a swimming pool. That would work for me. Probably not my call. But if you want to put the swimming pool back in so the press doesn't have a press room, I'm okay with that. Back in the 70s, Nixon, who liked bowling, he put in a bowling alley in the White House. Don't know if they still have it. That's just one of the various things that presidents have done over the years. When Barack Obama came in, he wanted to have a basketball court, decided to renovate the tennis courts, and they said, well, we're only going to spend $100 million taxpayer dollars. That's right, $100 million your dollars. Somebody spent $230 million, your money. Every single one of the changes in the White House, the changes in the grounds, the building, and whatever they put in. Heck, Eisenhower put in a putting green. I don't know what that cost. But every president has done something to put something in. Now, like I said, the biggest one was Truman when he entirely gutted the White House. There was nothing left on the inside. Presidents have all done this. And in this case, there's a situation going on with the White House that maybe you need to know about. Whenever there's a state dinner, did you know that the White House must contact a company and have them erect a tent? You heard me right, a tent to hold a state dinner for all these big-time politicians and big-time kings, queens, monarchs, whatever they are. They have to eat dinner in a frickin' tent. Why? Because there's no building big enough on the grounds to hold a state dinner. It doesn't work. You said, well, I saw the American president. They had a state dinner. No, they didn't. That's BS. They have to set up a tent. And the tent costs the taxpayers over $1 million. But here's the cool part. When they put in the tent, you know what they also put up? Green porta potties. That's what we call them, greenies. They put up green porta potties so you ladies and gentlemen, you monarchs, you kings and queens, can go use a greenie. That's the problem. And that's really, it doesn't look really good for the United States to tell some king or queen, hey, you got to go to the greenie over there. That's what they have to use, folks, in case you didn't know that. And that's part of the problem we have going on. So you bring all these monarchs, kings, queens, 1,000 people in, and they got to go in a tent, have to erect the tent. And by the way, weather in Washington, D.C. can be kind of iffy. You never know. And yes, tents are not supposed to leak, but they do. And the Secret Service has a doggone time because people can easily sneak into tent, bad people. Building's a little harder to do. So President Trump says, what we're going to do is we're going to build a ballroom. We're going to build a nice place that'll hold 1,000 people. Now, that's a group for a state dinner. That's kind of what they normally have. You want to bring in a big event and do a show off? You bring it into a big room. They all come in and go, whoo, this is cool. This is nice. This is fancy. So, yes, Trump is doing that. But here's the deal. It ain't costing you, as the taxpayer, one dime. President's not going to Congress and asking for money. He opened his own wallet, put in money himself. And by the way, Trump doesn't take a salary. Every other president takes $274,000 or whatever they happen to get. Trump doesn't take a salary. He donates all of his money. He's put money into this $300 million project, Ballroom. But it turns out that a whole bunch of other companies have decided they're going to pony up money too. And boy, these are some big names. Take a listen to some of these people putting up money. Altria, Amazon, Apple, Coinbase, Caterpillar, Hard Rock, Google, Meta, that's Facebook if you want to know, Microsoft, Ripple, Reynolds Aluminum, T-Mobile, Union Pacific, Betty World Johnson Foundation, I don't know who that is, Charles and Marissa Carcoletta, a whole bunch of other folks' names who I don't know, but a bunch of people are also putting in money. People, not companies, people. Now, you're saying, well, all they're trying to do is buy off the president. You know, the money these big companies put into politicians, they put them into their groups that help them get whatever legislation they want. There are these organizations, these people around Washington, D.C., they call on all these congressmen and senators, and they're pushing their particular bill they want done. But they're also paying. They're buying off the senators and the congressmen. That's what they do. That's why these senators and congressmen start out poor and end up being multimillionaires. Because these advocacy groups give them money. Well, sure, these advocacy groups are now giving the president money for the ballroom. Nothing wrong with that. I'd rather see it go into something concrete, something that'll last for dozens and dozens of years. However, speaking of that, now that it's being built, Eric Swalwell, who is a representative of the state of California, has said to anybody who's planning on running for president, part of the deal if we're going to support you, he says, if we're going to support you and you get elected, you must swear that you will destroy a ballroom that Trump builds. Yes, you must bring in the big giant bulldozers and you must knock down $300 million worth of building and go back to spending taxpayers' money to put up a tent for state dinners. Eric Swalwell is telling people to do that. You want to be president? You got to tear down the building that Trump built and go back to spending taxpayer money for a leaky tent. Oh, and the green porta potties. Those go back in as well. I'm just telling you what's going on. So Trump wants to build it. He's got other people willing to spend the money, and it's going to be used as a great showplace for the United States for all the executives and monarchs and what have you that come to this country. Now, if you don't like that, well, just keep in mind, you want to send your money to someone, you can always send it to me. I'll take it. That way, I'll feel happy and you won't. Kind of works for me. Now you know what's going on. See ya. Well, allow me to take you back in history for just a bit. The years, well, 1989, 1990, so let's talk late 80s, early 1990s. And there was a sports star back in those days, some of you may have heard of, many of you may remember. His name was Bo Jackson. That's right, Bo Jackson was a big football star at Auburn University. Ultimately went in the pros, but he happened to like playing both football and baseball, and he was very good at both sports. So you know what he did? He said, I'm going to play them both. See, Bo Jackson was a professional athlete, but he was a multi-sport professional athlete. Played for the Oakland Raiders and then the Kansas City Chiefs, and he played for some other teams also. But while he was playing for Oakland and Kansas City, he became an all-star in both sports. Now think about that. That's never happened before in history. Hasn't happened since, by the way. Bo Jackson, his concept, he was known as the marketing and the advertising campaign for Bo Jackson was Bo Knows. Bo knows everything. Bo knows baseball. Bo knows football. Other athletes have tried to perform in other sports and be as good at a professional level in more than one sport. If you remember, Michael Jordan decided to quit basketball and play baseball. I think he played for Birmingham in the minor leagues. Didn't work out the way he had hoped. He wasn't really that great a baseball player. Wasn't going to get out of the minors to get into the bigs, as they say. Went back to basketball, where he was really the best of the best. Still won some more championships. That was Michael Jordan. Because at basketball, he was the very best there was. And that's argument still that goes on today, whether it's, it's LeBron or whoever was the GOAT, they say. Well, most folks believe it was Michael Jordan. Now, when it came to folks like football and playing baseball at the same time, Bo Jackson was the king. And I mean all-star in both leagues, both sports. Nobody has ever done that before. And like I said, the advertising campaign of Bo Knows, believe it or not, it was used in all sorts of different venues. But Bo Jackson proved to be a multi-talent. Well, do we have multi-talents in sports today? We might be seeing one in Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is one of the best basketball players that anybody's ever seen. She's got every score, every record, about everything you could possibly do. And now she's decided to play a little bit of golf. She's a pretty good golfer, but remember, when she was a kid in high school, she played a whole lot of sports, and one of the sports she also played was golf, and she enjoys it. Now, is she going to be a star, and like Nancy Lopez or somebody like that? Probably not. But she'd certainly be invited to the big events. And she's been invited to a very big event at the Pelican Club outside of Tampa, Florida, for their November Anika Pro-Am. It's a big Pro-Am, and now that she's playing in it, it's a really big Pro-Am. As a matter of fact, when it was announced that she was going to be playing in this Pro-Am, tickets shot up 1,200%, 1,200% increase in tickets. Everybody wants to go now. All the sponsors, they're going, yay, we want to sponsor this. Looks like the TV ratings could be tremendous. It's sort of like when Tiger Woods showed up back in the old days. People who was not a golf fan, but when Tiger was playing, they watched. And they did for, 20 years? Will Caitlin Clark be the same? Don't know. But right now, she's the number one thing they talk about in the sports because she's the best they're out there. She is the go-to, the GOAT of basketball, and right now could be the go-to celebrity for any event. In this case, she's playing in a golf event, a sport that she likes and a sport she's pretty good at. Is she's going to be a Bo Jackson and Bo Knows? Probably not. But boy, she has got one thing that most other players don't have, star power. And star power follows Caitlin Clark wherever she goes, whether it's basketball or even the LPGA. Well, here we are in the first week of the NBA's 2025-2026 series. And what happens? The FBI announces a big, and I mean really big, gambling scheme. We haven't had gambling schemes like this in a while, but this is a big one because it involves, a coach of the NBA, players in the NBA, and a former player in the NBA. But are there more people coming? Well, that's a very good question that hopefully will be answered soon. But the big one right now is the coach of the Oregon team. Well, that's Chauncey Billups. He was busted in a poker scheme where they get people to come into a poker game where the game was fixed. Someone lost like $1.7 million. He brought somebody into these games. And then you had Terry Rozier. He's the point guard, I believe, for the Miami Heat. He was dropping out of a game, said, didn't want to play anymore, changed the prop bets. Now, if you know what a prop bet is anything aside from the outcome of the game itself. It could be who's the first person to be out, who's the first person to catch a football, who's the first person to run for a touchdown, whatever. These side bets, they call them, prop bets. And he came out of the game early, and frankly, I ended up collecting $200,000 from a guy who's making $26 million a year, gets $200,000 for stopping playing early in the game, so it messes up a prop bet. Look, we haven't seen gambling stuff like this in a long time. Finally, the last one was Damon Jones, who is, I think he's a Hall of Famer, former NBA guy, and he was also busted. Now, How do all these guys get themselves into trouble like this? Well, one, if they have a big desire to gamble, and that's something that exists. But the other thing is, let's say that organized crime found out something about each of these guys that, well, they didn't want out. It's something very private. And the organized crime says to them, hey, we'll release this unless you do X, Y, or Z. Those are the kind of things that can happen. Now, we've had gambling schemes over the years. Back in 1919, had the Black Sox scandal. This is the White Sox guys trying to cheat the World Series. Then back in 51, you had the college basketball point shaving scandal that was going on. Then in 1989, Pete Rose, remember him betting on baseball? He even bet on his own team. He never bet him to lose, but he bet on his own team. 2007, Tim Donahue, he was an NBA official. He was betting on games. He knew what was going on. Now, gambling has been legalized in 38 states. And if you watch TV, you see all these commercials for things like FanDuel and all these other associated gambling sites. And even though it's legal in 38 states, it's on national TV and you can play anywhere. Just take your phone out. Bingo, you got your phone. You can gamble all you want. And there are people out there that gamble. The problem is, well, everybody's into the money that gambling makes. And why do states legalize gambling? Money. The states tax it. And you figure out there's, like $21 billion worth of money that people gamble on. States are getting their cut of it. That's what this is all about. Same thing happens with the marijuana legalization. A number of states have legalized that. Why do they do it? Tax money. That's what they want. So, are these evil things? Yes, they are. Are they things that you can avoid? Yes, you can. Unless you decide you want to get into something that you may not be able to get out of. Now, here's something to think about. People out there have bookies. Now, bookies, you don't use a credit card on a bookie. You just call a bet in, and he has a tab for you. And if you lose, well, that tab's going to be paid. Now, the bookie's not going to collect the tab. He's going to send somebody over to collect it. And usually those somebodies are organized crime people. They come in and say, hey, you either pay it up or you got to do this or that, or else something bad could happen to you. Well, that's how some of these things happen with these people getting themselves in trouble and do things they probably wouldn't normally do. But now what you've seen is happening. Organized crime? Yes. The Italian families were in this whole thing up to their eyeballs. Are there more coming? Will there be more people in sports being caught and doing some bad stuff? My guess is yes, there will. So it was the tip of the iceberg. But right now, three main people, and you can see that gambling can lead to some very, very bad stuff, whether you're a gambling fan or you get yourself caught in a situation where you're told you got to do something you'd rather not do. That's what's happening, folks. And the FBI is all over it. And I'm guessing they're just starting. More to come. And hopefully it won't hit close to home. Well, if you're a fan of the WNBA, and well, there's a few people who are, it's not just Caitlin Clark who's become famous. There's another lady who's become famous herself. Her name is Sophie Cunningham. She's that blonde-haired young lady that's, some would say kind of a wild child. Well, she's not really. She's a kid who went to school in Columbia, Missouri, and there she played in sports in high school. She's got another sister. Family is very competitive because her family is also went to Missouri. They were all athletes in the family, so naturally she became an athlete, and she was pretty good. Well, in high school, she did a whole lot, played in basketball, loved playing basketball, and also she became a great athlete because for her high school football team, when the main kicker got hurt, she stepped in and started kicking field goals, went 2 for 4. She was that kind of lady. Now, she had a chance to play college wherever she wanted to go. She stayed at home, played at the University of Missouri, and ultimately became a Hall of Famer at that school. Was drafted in the second round by the Phoenix Mercury when she graduated, played with them for a number of years, but ultimately back in 2024 and 25, she was traded. She was traded from Phoenix to Indianapolis. And there, well, she became a star on the team, as well as Lexi. Lexi, Caitlin, and Sophie all became Tres Leches, the three amigos, if you will. They were one heck of a team, and people liked to watch the entire thing go. You had these two blondes and Caitlin. They became stars. People knew who they were. People wanted to get their autograph. People watched them on TV. And ultimately, well, Sophie Cunningham decided to go get her own podcast on TV. And she did. And she ended up teaming up with a gentleman that she went to high school with. He was 1 year ahead of her. Well, she went to, as I said, she went to Iowa, or she went to Mizzou, where she played basketball. And Wes went to Montana State University up in Bozeman, Montana. Well, ultimately, he graduated, she graduated. He started working in sports a little bit, an intern here, working there. Ended up on a TV show called Summer House on Bravo. Never saw it, but there it was. He was doing his own little thing. And Wes Wilson, well, he was still friends with Sophie Cunningham. She wanted to get a podcast, and they got together and said, hey, let's do a podcast called Show Me Something. And she talks on that podcast very straight. She'll tell you, when she's thinking, she'll tell you. Pretty straight little lady about things. But she is interesting in what she wants to do. Now, it turns out that recently Victoria's Secret had a fashion show. Now, let's be honest. Victoria's Secret has been around, well, since the late 80s, early 90s. Remember when they all started out with a little Victoria's Secret catalog? That was that one catalog that would come out and had some big stars in it, two in particular. One was a lady by the name of Jill Goodacre, and the other one was Stephanie Seymour, I believe it was. They were the two big stars in the book that came out, the catalog from Victoria's Secret, and it was a smash hit. Now, ultimately, Victoria's Secret went from being a magazine to being stores all around the United States. You all know what they are. But Jill Goodacre, well, she ended up marrying Harry Connick Jr. They've been married for like 32 years, got 3 daughters, doing quite well. But Jill Goodacre is still the classic for Victoria's Secret. And anybody who remembers, she was on the first year of Seinfeld. I think it was episode number 7. It was a story that happened in a New York City blackout. And she was stuck inside the vestibule with one of the characters. And the character was none other than Matthew Perry, played Chandler Bing on the show. And he was stuck inside this vestibule of this ATM machine. That's how they used to be back in the old days. They were like a big building and had a glass enclosed. You had to get out of your car, walk into it, and put your card in and everything else. Well, she was in that first episode. It was considered a classic. Well, as it turns out, Sophie Cunningham watched the Victoria's Secret TV show. And her nemesis, her arch nemesis in basketball, was on the show. And she was one of the Victoria's Secret's angels. That was April Reese. Well, according to Sophie, April killed it. And so you know what Sophie did? She called her agent and said, I've been wanting to be an angel on that show since I was in 2nd grade. I wonder if I could get there. Well, now it appears that maybe, just maybe, the people of Victoria's Secret might be smart and say, you know what? We're going to take Sophie Cunningham, turn her into an angel, because she's fit to do it. She's lovely. You've seen the clothes she wears, the styles that she wears. She's pretty wild. But could she be a great Victoria's Secret angel? I think she's about 6'1". So she's slender. She's got long legs. That's what the kind of models they want for Victoria's Secret. So she could appear. Be interesting to see what happens. But now, Sophie Cunningham has her own YouTube shows. It's called Show Me Something. And Wes Wilson and her buddies from high school, they've been around as friends since they were kids. They do the show together. It's kind of interesting to watch. You can see it on YouTube. But now you know, another one of the WNBA women, Sophie Cunningham, just might end up being a Victoria's Secret angel. And I'm sure that if she does, it'll be highly publicized, and it will be probably one of the biggest ratings getters on TV when the show airs. In fact, if she does go through with this. Just saying what happens when you're a star. People want to see you wherever you are and see whatever you do. That's how being a star works out because, well, you get following. And when you get a following, it means money. More money for everybody involved, the sponsors and the individual herself. Well, this past year, the legislature in the state of Indiana decided to do something rather unique. They appointed a committee, and the committee was designed to meet with other counties outside of Indiana, namely in the state of Illinois, to see about merging counties in Illinois into the state of Indiana. Now you're saying to yourself, what? Yeah, here's the deal. In Illinois, the down south area, the southern part of Illinois is highly conservative. The northern part of Illinois is, well, flat out liberal. And in the state of Illinois, well, the Democrats control everything. Republicans control nothing in the state. And right now, the state of Illinois is in serious financial issues, serious debt, if you will. And now some of these counties over in Illinois are saying, hey, we want to come to Indiana and be part of a conservative state. So the legislature appoints this committee. Now, the committee just met, had their first meeting with some of the counties in Illinois. And actually, it's a number of counties, many of whom are not even contiguous with the state of Indiana. So that means these are counties inside of Illinois that don't even touch the Indiana border. Yes, a whole bunch want to get out. They don't like what's going on in the state house in Illinois with their governor, with their representatives, and with their Senate because the Democrats control everything. Now, can this be done? Well, they can talk about it all they want, and talk is cheap. And the committee exists, and they had their meeting. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. But here's the thing you have to understand. If this committee were to draw up a number of counties, and I don't know how many they're planning on drawing up, they would have to submit that to the legislature of the state of Indiana. You're going, well, that's fine. Hey, Indiana, we get conservative ones coming in. Boy, my tax base is going to help us. People are going to want to be in the state of Indiana. We'll become even more conservative, right? Sounds like a plan, correct? Well, the only other problem is this. The state of Illinois has to also approve getting rid of these counties, having fewer counties and a fewer tax base with which to work. Now you're saying, well, Illinois doesn't really care about those conservative counties because they're just a giant pain in their tuchus. Well, they may very well be, but they contribute money. And if people are in the state of Indiana, not Illinois, that tax money for their property they're paying comes to the state of Indiana. And that's going to put Illinois even bigger debt than they already are. And right now they are in a huge debt. So, do you think the state of Illinois is going to allow a number of counties to say, yeah, we're moving to Indiana, so Indiana is going to look like, I don't know, Kentucky? If you think about it that way, just how jagged the state would look. No more straight lines on either side. When you got this big bulge, Indiana look like it's pregnant. Now, so is Illinois going to allow it? I don't believe so. But even if they were, even if they do, here's what's going to happen. Then this entire package that Illinois had approved and Indiana had approved has to go to Congress. Now, do you think the U.S. Congress, who can't decide on anything, and they can't, is going to say, hey, Illinois, if you want to do that, boy, that's perfectly okay. Indiana, you want to take them in, that's perfectly okay. We are going to put the stamp of approval and change the borders of one state. When you do that, I can guarantee you that conservative counties in other blue states around the United States, so I'm going to start with the state of California. I'll start you right there. Then I'm going to go to the state of Oregon, then the state of Washington. And those counties on the West Coast are going to go, hey, you did it for Indiana. You can do it for me. Ergo, completely upset the entire look and design of the United States of America. You think the Congress of the United States is going to go for that? Really? Because if you think that's going to go for that, I don't know what you're smoking, but do you have any extra? Just say it. So the problem here is they're spending time and effort in a committee that was approved by the Indiana legislature to see about annexing counties in Illinois into Indiana. I'm sorry, folks. I don't mean to be a ne'er-do-well in this, but it ain't going to happen. Illinois is not going to let it happen, even if Indiana wants it to happen and votes for it. And if it does get out of Indiana and Illinois, it goes to the U.S. Congress. And the U.S. Congress is definitely not going to allow that to happen, because if they do, they'll open up the floodgates, and heaven knows how the United States would look. We'd end up with something nobody would recognize. You wouldn't be able to figure out what state goes where. It'd be a mess. Now, I understand it's a nice thing you're looking at, trying to help out the folks in Illinois that want to get out of the mess and come to Indiana, where the land of the free and the home of the brave. But unfortunately, if you want that, move. It's the only thing I can tell you, because what you're trying to do ain't possible. Not in the state of Illinois, and definitely not in the Congress of the United States. Just telling you the reality. And frankly, do we need to spend time and money, our money from our government, to see about getting something done that has a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks? Just saying. Well, in case you haven't seen it, there's a big power struggle going on between women's basketball and the LPGA. That's the Women's Golf Association. It all involves one young little lady. A lady's name is Caitlin Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark, as you probably know, is a star in the WNBA. Matter of fact, she is the star in the WNBA. And when she's playing and the people watch, the fans show up. When she's not playing, the people tune out. The fans still show up because she's Caitlin Clark. But that still is a big deal. And when she's out of the game, well, that means, people are not watching and the money's not coming in like they hoped it would. The problem is Caitlin Clark was injured after 13 games in the second season. Now, she still was around the court every day, showed up, signed autographs. People loved to see her, but hoping against hope that she would come back in from the injury she sustained. Well, she didn't. But the team started collecting, at-large players, you might call them. They're players that nobody else wanted or they traded for, whatever, and formed a secondary team that actually was pretty good, led by a couple of ladies. One was Sophie Cunningham, the other was Lexi. And those ladies started winning ball games and actually got the Fury into the playoffs. Not a bad position to be in, frankly. Turns out that Ms. Cunningham, she was also injured, tore up her knee. Now, she was in the sidelines. And suddenly you had some of your best players, including your top point guard, also go down. Pretty much everybody was hurt. They were playing with replacement players doing the best they could. They still took the semifinals to the fifth game, overtime no less, and lost to Las Vegas, who ultimately won the WNBA championship that nobody watched. Yeah, nobody watched. Now, sponsors are getting a little concerned. What's going on here? Caitlin Clark, you're supposed to have her control. She's supposed to be in. That's what everybody was betting on. Not the league. Understand that, folks. It was not the league people were watching. It was that athlete, that transactional, that national, that star, that once-in-a-lifetime player, Caitlin Clark. She wasn't just a basketball star. She was a professional athlete. Call it what you will. You might remember the name Bo Jackson from back the late 80s, early 90s. Bo Jackson played baseball and football, and was the only player in history ever to become an all-star in both sports. Well, nobody had ever done that before. Ultimately, he suffered an injury to his hip and put him out of the game. But while he was in, the concept and the buzzword was Bo knows. Bo knows football, Bo knows Bo knows baseball. And he did. And he did pretty doggone well. Well, Caitlin Clark, she's proving that she's more than just a professional basketball player. She's a professional athlete. Her parents were both athletes in college. And frankly, that's all they know. They got her a black belt in Taekwondo when she was 6 years old. She's played everything. She liked to play basketball, but she also played other sports in school. She was a great soccer player. She loved all the sports and was pretty good at all of them. Probably had multiple letters and everything when she was in high school, but she concentrated on basketball. And ultimately, well, she went to Iowa and became the best of the best in college. I mean, the best of the best. Ultimately drafted #1 by the Indianapolis Fever. And in her rookie year, she took them to the playoffs. They got beat in the first round, but she was still very good. Well, now, second year, she gets hurt again. I mean, big time, out after 13 games. Well, here's the deal. After the season's over, she was invited to play in an LPGA Pro-Am. Now, it's a big deal. You've seen Pro-Ams. The PGA has them all the time, especially the one at the links, Pebble Beach, those kind of places. Pro-Am's all the stars play. Well, the fact that she was playing in a Pro-Am event outside of Tampa, Florida at the Pelican Club caused a big amount of hurt to the WNBA. They were upset. Apparently, Caitlin didn't get their permission to play in the Pro-Am like she needed it. So she decides she's going to play in the Pro-Am, which is November 12th, I believe it is. And suddenly the ticket sales to the event jumped by 1,200%. That's right, 1,200%. And the media is covering it, and everybody's covering it. Everybody wants to know, everybody wants to go. Because wherever Caitlin Clark goes, she's a phenom. People want to see a pro athlete. That's what she is. And she loves golf, and she ain't half bad at it. So she's going to play with Nelly Korda and all the other pro players, and they're glad about it because it's putting women's golf on the map. Now, everybody knows what the LPGA is, but nobody really gives a darn. But now everybody's going to want to watch because wherever Caitlin goes, everybody wants to watch. It's sort of like the Tiger Woods phenom back, 20, 25 years ago. People liked golf. It was okay. But when Tiger came around, any match that he was in, any golfing event he was in, they watched. There were even special golf events they had where he went one-on-one with players, even in the night when they lit up golf courses. Tiger Woods was a phenom, but he was a golf phenom. Didn't play anything else, really. Caitlin Clark, she plays multiple sports. Michael Jordan tried it, baseball. Wasn't all that great. Came back to basketball because that's where he was the best. But Caitlin Clark's pretty good at a lot of things. She's a natural athlete. So what's happened now? Well, she's still slated to play in that event November. And it's going to be pretty interesting. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of the LPGA, but I plan to watch. And I'm sure a lot of other folks plan to watch as well. So it's what happens when you become a big-time professional. But will there be a WNBA when she gets back? Because, the WNBA could either have a strike or a lockout. That could happen right around Halloween. Nobody knows yet what they're going to do, but right now, the forces don't look good. And it could very well end. The WNBA season could be over until, something happens. And that something could be, nobody knows what it's going to be. Are they going to get NBA player money? They're going to get more money. Are they going to get revenue sharing? There is no revenue. They've been losing money. The league's been losing $40 million a year for the last 20-some years. Well, it might be realistic, folks. This is what's going to happen. So now you know, Caitlin Clark could be playing and will be playing in an LPGA event, much to the chagrin and the anger of the WNBA. And right now, they've got their own set of problems. Because will there be an WNBA season in 2026? Maybe not. But I'll tell you what will be coming in 2026. The all-new shoe. That's right, the official Caitlin Clark shoe. Nike's putting that out in 2026. Stand in line. I think the sales are going to be monumental.